And blessings, family, peace, and blessings to the fam. We are back. Constructive Convos is back with another powerful show for we have in store for you today. Um, Today's topic we're going to be talking about. We're going to be delving into the Black family. We're going to be talking about parenting. More specifically, we're going to get down and dirty with the topic of discipline in the Black household and the Black family. So, to kick this thing off, we want to, introduce the panel to the family today. We have our brother B2. Um,
Blessings, family. Big up.
we have E Black.
Yeah, big up, big up, big up.
We have our brother Raz.
Big up, family.
We have our brother Witness.
Good evening, everybody.
And I am the beautiful melanated goddess. All right. So, my panel members, what let's just dive right in. Let's talk about discipline, and with regard to the Black family and the Black household. What do you all think is like the typical discipline structure, or how do people go about deciding discipline? Is it more of a physical thing, or I know that we like to call it beatings, or you know, I like to say physically discipline your child, so that you don't really get into kind of any kind of legalities with it. But we all know what we're talking about.
Yeah, the licks of frustration.
Licks of frustration. Mm,
Yeah, because
okay.
most of I don't know about everyone else, but I
Yeah,
remember growing up.
like personally, in it, I don't.
Wait, Raz was just talking.
My bad, no.
Yeah, I was I remember growing up, yeah, and like most times I've gotten like licks is when my mom or my dad is frustrated with my disobedience. And I think looking back on it, I think that if they had communicated me or presented me options or told me why if I choose this route instead of going the other route, and give me like the options, and I think I would have listened and had that conversation better than just receiving licks.
Okay, so you're a little mad about getting licks. Okay, okay, I
Oh
got you.
no, 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 I'm definitely not mad. Like there was actually a point in time that I actually didn't care anymore. I was like, I was getting licks, and they kind of figured that it wasn't hurting man no more, man. I was just looking at them dead in the face, you know.
Mm. Anybody else? What are you gonna say, brother E?
Yeah, for me, licks is not the way forward, man. Like, can just make someone angry, really, and at the end of the day, there's gonna be a point where that's not gonna work. You just got an angry person. So yeah, man, I think it's definitely best to find other communication.
Mm. So you're saying that the licks kind of can create anger in the child?
Yeah, most definitely. How you gonna not be angry if you're getting beat? It's like, what do your parents do? Tell you when someone else beats you?
That's a good one. They tell you to hit them back, right? But I think with
So
parents, they probably want you in that regard. They want you to do as they say, not as they do, right?
yeah, and that's frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
I know you have to be careful
But
when you start beating
you wanna
children.
do as well, innit? So
Yeah, true. I
doesn't make
agree.
sense.
Yeah, doesn't make sense. And psychological damage which could take place to the child or children being beaten. So you have to be very careful. And if you don't really know how to express yourself but through violence, then maybe you shouldn't be a parent in the first place. or a guardian in the first place.
It's a difficult
Hey,
one.
so
Like parents. For go on, sis.
no, I was gonna ask: is there anyone on the panel that's for the spankings? I'm gonna use the term spankings just because I think that I don't know if all of our listeners will understand what we mean by beatings, and it could sound as if we're advocating something a whole different other thing.
Yeah, to be honest, yeah, I think that there's certain individuals that need to get beat, man. Certain kids that I've seen, yeah, they well, but they need to get beat. Like
They need to get beat.
I'll be an advocate for them getting an ass whipping if it was presented in court, like because like especially white kids, I would the general narrative, like they'd be like, "Fuck off, mom." I'm like, eh? Are you Are you mad? Like just me, I'm the type of person here that I'm not saying that don't beat your kids in it. Like I understand there's some cases, yeah, where the rod is needed, yeah. But like this thing where you have to beat your kids for everything they do wrong or overdoing it, like it's nonsensical. But I think that in dire
Um,
situations where a physical um, repercussion for an action is required that will put in the child's head that if they do this outside the house, these are the particular things that will happen to them, sort of thing, you know?
I sort of agree to an extent. I do think that there are particular um, situations or scenarios or individuals at a time where it may warrant some form of physical beating. I think there is a risk that, like Raz said, um, it could be a tool that is overly abused and a parent resorts to that too often. Also, I think more so than the beating, a conversation always needs to take place so that the child can actually understand the correction. Because, yeah, I think beating alone leaves a lot of questions unanswered. It builds up anger. And ultimately, as a parent, if you're having to beat your child, clearly it's not working. Like, if you're having to continuously beat them, but there are instances, maybe for safety, actually, maybe not even for safety, but just some extraordinary behaviors that, yeah, might warrant a beating.
See, one time, yeah, like my daughter, yeah, I was tired. It was coming up some steps, yeah, and she was taking long, and she did something with a balloon, yeah, and then I was frustrated, and then I told her if she did that again, yeah, because it was basically making us take long, that I was gonna burst the balloon, right? And then she did it again, and I burst the balloon, yeah, and then um maybe even a week later, like she was still upset about that, and I was like, yeah. But what I'm really saying is that, yeah, man, like these beatings, they carry on inside the person. It's like, right. It's like
The
there's
psychological
a moment
damage.
in your relationship where you need to be afraid of that person. Like that's the other person, what they're trying to do, right?
right.
And yeah, I don't know how that, you know, works out for a
I
team,
don't.
a team
I
mentality.
don't know if it's
I,
a.
I
I can see the afraid of. Sorry, Raz. I can see the afraid of a person thing, and again, I think when it's abused and used all the time for little things, that seems to be the motive. But I think um, in some rare instances, it's more afraid of repeating a certain action. It's the action as opposed to the person. But again, it's that's gonna be dependent on the conversation, the reason, and the opportunities to do things differently. You know what I mean? I think kids they're in a development in it, so they need chances and they need that conversation. They need the understanding more so than anything. Sorry, Raz, I cut you up, bro.
Um, I the thing is, yeah, I know a lot of people, yeah, that got beat, like, and they turned out fine. But also, I can show you a lot of people that got beat and they turned out really badly. So I think it's the lessons that go along with the beating. Like if your like parent just like beat you for no reason, or don't explain to you why you're getting a beating or whatever, and just like and but and I also think that there's a fine line between licks or you know disciplinary beatings and child abuse, man. Because some of these parents are going on a matting. Because I remember stories, man, about my man spraying the belt with the deodorant for giving the licks, and it'd be extra stings for man. Like when my mate told me that, I was like, what?
What
Like that's
man?
so
What man? Man basically pre-laces the
yeah,
belt with
man,
with
yeah,
deodorant.
with deodorant. So it's when it gets licks, yeah, it stings because the
Man,
yeah, man, or man get hit with the TV cord. You know them
see,
ones
that's
there.
another risk. That's another risk. It's like once you go down that route of persistent beating, and it's like the child sort of builds a tolerance for it. Some parents will then escalate to new, creative, inventive ways to inflict that pain, and
Yeah,
yeah, that's mad.
but that's the issue where like they're beating their kids, yeah, for like the dumbest things that they don't need to beat them for. They can just talk to them about it.
Mm,
But like that's what I was saying there. I do believe that there's certain situations that do call for licks. Um, because physical like the like physical cues and stuff work for some people and they don't work for other people, and I think it's about also the child's temperament and
mm,
how receptive your child is to correction and what type of correction is. If you have a youth, yeah, I don't want to hear nothing, and he or she is bare bold, proper like chatting you. There's no communication. There's no way you're gonna be like, oh yeah, you could choose to do this, you could choose to do that. He's just gonna look at you like you're some dickhead. So in that situation,
But let
I
let me
think
let me
it's
let me
called
let me.
for
I,
some type of physical, or even locking them in a room. Like I used to get sent to my room, and my mom used to lock the door, and I'll just stay in my room and read, and then I'll come downstairs and I'll be like, oh, I'm sorry, mom, blah blah blah. But I didn't learn my lesson. But every time, yeah, like I got that side eye, yeah, especially in public. Man got that side eye to make me check myself. Man didn't do the manners. You know what I mean? So I guess it's
well,
One
temperament.
of the one of the
I
things
wanted
that
to
I had, yeah, go on.
I wanted to comment to what Raz was saying about like you know he knows people who were hit and they turned out fine, and people who were hit and they didn't. I think a lot of people who were hit coming up, they laugh about it, they joke about it, like, oh, it's the good old days, like they survived something, you know. And if when you're just like in a neutral place and you think back about it, it does sound kind of wild that you had to survive your parents, your caregivers. You know what I'm saying? Like you had to survive them, and I wanted to say that, and I also wanted to say, like in those moments, right? I think what happens is that the most of the time when parents resort to physical um, discipline, it's due to them feeling as if they're losing control of the situation. In the situation where you have this youth who is mouthing off, they're talking back, yada yada yada, right? So then it sounds to me, what I was getting from what you were saying is that the only resort you would have to regain the control would be to physically manage them, to physically discipline them, to regain the control. As if this person was going to stay elevated to that capacity all day, every time you see them. So think about how we deal with issues when we're upset. I know when I'm upset, that's not a good time to be talking to me about, hey, so what are we eating for dinner? I'm probably gonna just start cussing, like, cause I'm already upset. See, but if you say, "Oh, my mommy is upset," let me chill, wait a little while, and I'm gonna say, "Hey, mom, you know, it's getting kind of late, and I know you were mad, but you didn't feed us." I might say, "Okay, baby, mommy sorry." Da 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 da. My whole response will be different, you know. So I'm just saying that I don't think that. I mean, so far I've been listening. I've heard the word frustrated, right? You know, there's no other thing left to do because of the situation. It really depends on the parent's ability to just maintain control over their own emotions. At the end of the day, they are the adult. So this little kid who's having a little tantrum because they can't get the cereal that they want, why do they need to get popped? For what? When you the one with the money or the debit card, like, just don't buy it. They can cry all they want to. They're a kid. Let them cry. They're a kid. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just think that a lot of that stems from parents losing control and hoping that their children will will be okay later on. And it's not always the same. It's not always a positive result. And it, to me, it normalizes violence. Overall, it normalizes violence. So even if you're quote unquote okay, you definitely don't see nothing wrong with violence, because why? People violent towards you, and you turned out okay. So you know, the cycle can continue. You're gonna pop your kids. You're gonna go beat them with the belt. You're gonna, you know, carry on the family tradition. That's what I had to say,
Mm,
brother E.
yeah. Like on the letting them cry thing, yeah. Like I'm not on that. Like I think when they're crying, like the issue should be addressed and like try to help them get to the understanding that crying was probably not the best response to whatever happened. Like, for that one. But what I was gonna say
At what?
before,
So no, at no age they should cry.
no, not like for no
No, I
reason.
think he's talking about sulking though, innit?
Like or
Tantrum.
even just crying, like, not for no reason. Like
Yo, E
what's
is
like
funny.
that why would they just be crying for no reason?
Cause
Like
they're a
that
kid. Oh my
but that's not what
God.
kids do. They
Of
have a
course they
reason
do.
why they're crying, innit?
No, they don't. They cry for no good reason.
No, that's subjective. But
Right.
they have a reason. But then through like us having a conversation about it or communicating that that's not really even for example, yeah, like labels, right? Say with my eldest, yeah, like I have one of the labels we use is that she's a warrior, yeah. So a lot of the times, like say if she was to cry, yeah, or she was to hurt herself, when I say you're a warrior, like you don't need to cry, yeah, she can just stop.
Mhm.
Do you see what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, man, it's not really necessary.
Positive reinforcement.
Bristol
It's
said
like,
he not on the crying.
no, but it's not really necessary because even like, say for example, yeah, because my daughter, she has not really cried a lot, yeah, from when she was young, because where she was able to use sign language, like she could communicate. So the thing is, isn't it, yeah, if like it's all about anticipation. Like you don't wait for your child to be hungry to feed them, right? You feed them before they're hungry, then they don't cry.
Now
Like it's
that I
quite
can,
simple.
yes, that I can agree with, because when my son was a baby, them bottles was on deck. Was not trying to hear him scream down the place at all.
Like they only
I'm
crying for a reason, you know. Like when they're a proper baby, they need to be changed, they need to be burped, they need to be fed, they want some attention. Like the ones there. If they're crying, you're not doing something right. And then
But they might
it's
cry
the
because they
same
don't
as
feel good.
so then you need to sort something out for them, innit? What do you mean?
I'm saying sometimes it gotta pass. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying that there might be times where they just cry because they don't feel good. You
No,
know.
they can be feeling unwell, but it doesn't work. They got need to cry for, like during
So
the
what
time.
if they
No,
do
man.
cry though? What if that makes them like, oh my gosh, I have a fever, I feel
Yeah, cool.
horrible.
They can cry in the moment, but then we need to get past that, right? And then we don't need to be repeating it.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
Like it might happen a couple more times, but it's like I think it's all about how you communicate. And then I suppose in it, I haven't had everybody's children, but I'm thinking if your children see sense, then it's not that difficult.
Okay. So I mean, I think for me, what I'm hearing you say is that's like a parenting style of yours. You know what I'm saying? So because that was
Hmm.
one of the questions I wanted to ask everyone. You know, if they could like describe parenting styles or like the differences between them, or we can get into parenting styles.
Yeah, yeah. When someone else goes, I'll go.
Yep, I just wanted to mention that this whole discussion about signing, it comes down to communication, in my opinion, or lack of communication. I just wanted to share with everybody something which I think will be very helpful to us in this discussion about parents and looking after kids. Um, what I've got here is something which was brought up by, I managed to find it here. It's called baby signing, the new baby talks. Some people might know about it, some people might not. It's been around for a while. Now, what I wanted to mention in regards to this is because it helps with communication. Communication or lack of communication is one of the things which leads to frustration, and the frustration which leads to parents getting angry, resulting in beating their kids.
Could you put that
or
on the back chat, please, brother?
Sure, sure, absolutely. I'm gonna share it with everyone. I just wanted to give everyone a big, just a quick read from it. It says here, this is from the Guardian. Baby signing was invented. What was it? To help babies communicate before they can talk, and it was investigated thoroughly by the scientist Joseph Garcia, among others, in the late 1980s. While working at Alaska Pacific University, Garcia suggested that even at 6 months, hearing babies of hearing parents can begin learning basic sign languages for ideas such as eat, drink, milk, more, no, and hot. According to his theory, a hot baby with a basic grasp of signing would simply move his open hand across his forehead to make his parents instantly remove his unnecessary jumper. It was only a few years ago, however, that baby signing really took off in the UK. It seems odd that despite having the means to sign since the birth of language, we've only recently decided to share this information with our babies. Deaf communities have always known that infants can sign before they can talk, but hearing parents hadn't thought to follow suit. So basically, this is something that I've even, it says, mentions the National Trials Trust website. So it seems they're co-signing it, but it's something that I've known about for years, where parents go through the process of baby signing with their children to help them communicate. There are lots of videos of this online, and you can see parents doing that. I'll add this in the back chat for everyone to read. But I think that's a good start, because it seems to me when parents end up becoming aggressive, or if kids become unresponsive, it's because there is a lack of communication. So you have to start from the beginning knowing how to communicate with your child and teaching your child how to communicate with you as a parent. And I think when there's a breakdown of communication, me personally, I look at the parents. I think the parents are not very good at communicating with their children, and they might resort to frustration, which might make the parent feel like he or she has made their point, but it could have psychological problems for the kids. And as was mentioned earlier by, I think, Raz, the kids just know how to make themselves immune to any form of punishment. So I think communication is the key, and you need to know how to communicate with that child from them being a baby, right from the beginning. That's what I believe.
Also, yeah, like see stress, yeah, it compounds. So like if they're stressed from young, they get more is it more used to stress? Like for when they're older, not used to it. Like they're more. I need to double check what it is, but it's not good anyway to do with their stress levels. So when they're crying when they're young and people are leaving them cry or even shouting at them while they're crying and making it worse, it's just making them more stressed out for when they're older. And it's like, yeah, man, that's not the way forward at all. But the silent times thing, that one, it definitely works. Like with both of my children, they're able to use that, and it like yeah, being able to communicate with them is very important. And yeah, it saves a lot of stress.
Sorry, what
And
you baby sign with your children? Did you say?
yeah, like
Wow.
me,
Okay.
not as good as my missus, but like I know the basics. And yeah, like my eldest, like she stopped using it right when she started speaking, but now that we have another young one, like she's using it again. So yeah, it's cool. And like yeah, definitely stops all the crying. But it's another thing, yeah, with this parenting thing is energy. It's like when your energy is low, you're easily frustrated, and you know it's easy to direct your frustration at people that can't do anything back. So it's like yeah, it's about being mindful of your energy and your state, and like being able to give at least like 80% all the time, like when they're around. And yeah, and also being able to plan time where you can get that break so it's not so overwhelming where you are frustrated and you lash out at the children.
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely, definitely agree with that.
So, so would you say it begins with lack of education?
On parenting, I would say so because it's like there's books on parenting, but it's not like recommended reading for people when they're gonna be a parent. It's like, okay, you're gonna be a parent. Are you scared? Like that's what people ask people, like
Because
you
what I
know.
seem to find, you sometimes get a reflection of repetition, the lack of parent from one parent to another, and because we're getting younger and younger, I just feel that the information that we are to get us ready for being into
Yeah, you're on mute.
I
Yeah, it's
think you're
chopping up.
cutting out.
Big up, Scared though.
Bless, big up to the family.
Bless up, my bro. Big up, Terry.
yeah.
Yeah, I was sorry, Terry. You go. I was gonna say, I'll let Terry finish though. Because I was gonna really take it off topic. Okay, I was just gonna say, like, obviously, I missed a lot of the earlier conversation, so I'm not sure exactly what's been covered or what's been said. But in terms to like, child, like raising children, nation building, etc., and discipline or parenting, directions, things like that. I agree with a lot of I have heard since I got in here. I do kind of disagree with what Melanie said in terms of regards of teaching the children violence. I feel like to some extent violence, like we can't really sanitize reality like that, and violence is a part of reality. And I think there is a certain amount of which there is a safe place in which to learn violence. I know it's like yeah, very contradictory statement, but I think not just violence, but violence as a consequence as of an action. Now, obviously, to teach a kid, that there are people who are bigger than you who are going to be able to bully you and violently force you to do things isn't necessarily the lesson you want to get across to them. The lesson of consequence is definitely the one I think you do want to get across to them. And so, if for example, if you keep doing this, or if you go down this lane and you get warned on several occasions, etc., as we say in the Caribbean, if you don't hear, you're gonna feel. And the reality is, unfortunately for us black people, is we feel a lot more often than other people in other communities. So in situations with the police, when you don't hear them talking to you, you definitely feel them very quickly. And they'll put their hands on you and they'll show you what violence is. Out on the in general, when you're dealing with people, if you don't talk or you don't understand, there's consequences for your actions. You're gonna find out there'll be violent consequences. On a larger scale, when our kids are actually watching television, they're learning about business, governments, and global politics, they realize there's actually consequences. And if you don't follow those consequences, we invade your country and we use the ultimate force of violence against you. So in teaching that sort of lesson, that violence is a final step that people will resort to, can be resorted to, and perhaps you might yourself have to resort to at some point. I think it is it's a positive lesson, but I think it's how we do it. If you're beating your kids, like I think someone was just saying, out of frustration or out of reaction, and you're getting frustrated because you're tired and all these sort of things, that's never a good thing. But in terms of, and obviously calculating beating your kids isn't necessarily a good thing either. Like think sitting down thinking how am I gonna beat my kid this time. But to a certain extent, actually having a set of rules of saying, if you pass all of these extreme measures, you are gonna get to this violent one, and also understanding that not every kid needs to actually get beat. Some kids just you threaten them with a beating and they're shook, and that's enough. Do you know what I mean? And that the actual beating might undo the work that the threat done. So it's about understanding your kid and understand that parenting is I don't know, it's a multi-dimensional thing. Just because you have one tool that worked on one kid, trying to use that again on another kid in the same way, you're gonna end up in a like negative situation. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that part. So I think beating your kids is negative, but there's like beating child abuse, obviously losing control and beating your kids is negative. But obviously doing it in a way in which it's a consequence to an action. I think there can be a lot of learning from that.
Mm.
Hmm.
And I think you touched on a key point as well, control. Like, I mean, is the type of beating that people got in their mind the same as a slap on the hand? Like, put your
Yeah,
hand out, and it's the same.
yeah.
That's why I said spanking, because
Because
I don't think so. That's not.
I think there's
No,
levels in it.
we talked about belts and stuff. We ain't talking about no slap on the hand. That's to
Okay.
me, when you use the term a beating, is just a whole different echelon. And you know, um, I heard the points that you made, brother Scattered, and I just feel like there's so many other lessons that we teach our kids as parents, and we never put them to experience those things, and somehow they still learn it, right? So I think that your child can learn consequences, you know, without I don't think that it's like they won't learn consequences if they never get spanked or they never. I don't think so. I truly, that I don't. There's lots of examples of people I whose parents never came at them in an aggressive manner, right? And I think that you know, especially when your children are very, very young. But I think it's in general. Your parents should be, like if you ever play tag and you have home base, your parents should be home base. You should be safe with them. You should be able to, you know, you should you should be able to mess up and they correct you in love. And I'm sorry, but all this didn't I tell you not to jump? That's not in love. It's just not. It's just not. I mean, I truly wish that I've knew the things that I know and believed the things that I believe now when my son was younger. You know, I do. Is he a messed up individual? No. But how much more great could he have been without having those experiences? Could he have learned how to go cross the street without his mother popping him because he ain't look, because I was the one that was scared that something could have happened to him. So because I'm scared, now I'm hitting him. So now, you know what I'm saying, that okay, when you don't know what to do, you start swinging. This is the lessons that kids are learning indirectly. I don't know. I don't think that, if I was to have another child, I would, to me, that would be a challenge to keep my emotions and my hands to myself and keep my emotions under control. How can I teach using words? That's a huge challenge for a lot of parents. And it's so simple. It's so simple to just lift your hand up. It's easy. I don't know.
No, I hear you on that, like beating out of frustration and anger. I guess I use the term beating when I don't mean it, like not beating, like I definitely mean spanking or a slap on the hand. Or do I
But
do?
it's usually out of frustration. When your kid takes a crayon and writes on the inside of your car, you want to be like, what the fuck? What the what? You just like, you know what I'm saying? Oh, you're gonna get it, and then why you do that? And they, even if you hitting them, you hitting them because you're frustrated. Do you think the kid is never gonna like? I don't know. Like
I
now
don't
they
think.
gonna.
I don't know. Like for me, when I'm talking about this beat, like having beaten as a consequence, it definitely isn't nothing about a crayon in a car or anything small. It's
Well,
like I
that's
said,
I'm
it's
just
a
giving
time.
examples of the reason why kids get hit. I'm giving examples because we, you know, and unless you're going to, you didn't offer up any like only under these circumstances. So there's a lot of reasons why kids get hit. So yes, writing in your car on a crane with a crayon is reasons why kids get hit. Writing on the walls, jumping on the bed, making too much noise,
Yeah,
pop.
I wasn't
Yeah, you know
disagreeing.
what I'm saying? Like
Yeah, I wasn't
it
disagreeing
happens.
that those are reasons that people do it. But that's not the reasons that I was saying that a beating is justified for. So if you're saying that someone's getting beat for those things, I would agree with you. That's not good parenting. However, like I was saying, what I did say is it's a last result at the end after child has been warned. There's usually something big or serious and dangerous, usually in some way or form, in which yeah, the
Give
physical
me an
violence you're
example of
inflicting.
something big. Because give me an example of something big, then, so I could just understand where you're coming from.
Well, you tell a teenage kid not to carry knives, and then you find knives in his bag not once but twice now.
Mm. I think you need to have a conversation. You gotta really have a conversation. You don't just tell them not to. Why they got the knife? You hitting them. That's not getting to the problem of why they carrying a knife at all.
The key word in this is second time.
It
Huh?
maybe because somebody wants to kill them.
Yeah, for
Why are
sure.
you hitting them? Have a conversation. Like my whole
Yeah,
point is, your
but
kid's
sister,
carrying a
this
knife.
is the second time, sister. So you've had the conversation on the first occasion, and this is the
Well,
point.
Dad, guess what? The streets is hot. You know what I'm saying? Like it's still a conversation. My
Yeah, yeah,
answer
but
is
this is the
my
thing, though.
response is that I hear you.
I understand your response, isn't it? But like, this is the thing,
Hmm.
right? So growing up as a kid, right? If I'm carrying a knife, and then my mom has a conversation with me, right? I'm like, all right, that's all right, mom. I'm not gonna do it again. And she catches me with a knife again. All right, mom, I'm not gonna do it again. And she's like, why are you carrying a knife? I'm not gonna just come out and tell her why I'm carrying a knife, etc. And if I do, it doesn't mean I'm gonna stop carrying the knife after I told her I'm gonna stop carrying the knife. So the point I'm making is that sometimes, well, in my opinion anyway, like I think sometimes someone's got to feel, and people have to feel as well as the words. The words are all good, especially but when you're in that teenage boy, young age where you think you're the man anyway. Especially when you think you could challenge your father or if your father's not around and it's just your mum. It's like, man, like who are you? What are you talking about? You're struggling anyway. Do you know what I mean? What are you doing to talk to me? Someone's gonna have to do because there's a point in life I know it where I thought I knew it all, innit? So it was only the people who really could talk to me were the people I knew, like my older brother. If I didn't listen to them, there was gonna be something behind that as well.
Okay. I still don't really understand if your child feels like their life is in danger and they can't
But
protect
man, when I was
themselves,
younger, I wanted to carry a knife. It wasn't because I felt like
beating them is, so they would just have their life be in danger.
I hear
I
you,
mean,
but when I was younger, man,
I would
I
just carry a knife and go to school and then just get the
I
beating. But at least I was
man,
protected. I don't need a
man,
knife from my mother.
cool. When I was younger and I was carrying a knife, man, I wasn't doing it because I felt my life was in danger. I'm not trying to like have a whole big conversation about, but I'm trying to say like when I was young, I was doing stupid stuff. It wasn't because I was afraid or anything. It's because I was doing what everyone else was doing. I was following fashion. I needed somebody to have very firm words with me, and if the words weren't going to work, be very firm with me and let me know you're not going to follow fashion. And if you are, if you think you've got problems out here, there, we have worse problems in here.
Okay, I guess we disagree. It's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
I came across some interesting information. I just wanted to let everybody know it deals exactly with what we are talking about here. Came across it in the New York Times. It was written by Stacey Patton back on March 10th, 2017. Title for it, it's very straight to the point. Stop beating black children. So I was curious and I began to read more of what Stacey Patton was discussing. And I came across this. It says, today, despite 50 years worth of research on the harms of tough love parenting, many Black parents still see a slap across the behind or a firm pop on the hand as within bounds. But it doesn't stop there. Statistics gathered by the National Child Abuse and Neglect Data System consistently show that Black children are mistreated and killed by their family members at significantly higher rates than children of any other group. Between 2006 and 2015, more than 3,600 Black children were killed as a result of maltreatment, according to the Administration for Children and Families. It says here that's an average of 360 children a year, 3 times higher than for other racial and ethnic groups. Many social workers and district attorneys I have talked to say it is not malicious parents intentionally hurting their kids who end up with convictions for child abuse or homicide. It is those who started spanking and it escalated as the child got bigger. She then goes on to say, which is quite interesting, too many Black leaders continue to support hitting children. A few years ago, our first Black president joked nostalgically at the 100th anniversary of the NAACP about the days when the community was empowered to publicly whoop misbehaving children. Black clergy preach a spare the rod, spoil the child gospel. Black comedians make fun of white parents who do timeouts. And the latest trend is parents uploading videos to social media of them screaming at, shaming, and hitting their kids for millions of people to view and like. The truth is that white supremacy has done a masterful job of getting Black people to continue its trauma work and call it love. That is how in some 19 states, mostly in the South, you can get so many Black parents to sign opt-in forms giving public school teachers permission to paddle their kids with wooden boards, even though Black students are 5 times more likely to be hit than white students for committing the same offenses. Very, very interesting.
Bless up, Brother Witness. Bless up. Bless up, Melanated. Bless up, family. Sorry just to interrupt.
Bless up,
But
Sister Nine.
as the brothers brought up that the article, I would just like to ask him that does he think that it's the same in England?
Somebody's making noise.
Is it no? I would hope not. No, not in England. They used to beat. They used to use punishment like that. But we're going back 60s, 1950s, 40s, 70s. But it's not that bad. But
you talking about in the schools? Are you talking about in the schools?
Oh yeah, I'm talking about in the schools. But what outside of the schools, I think within the community, I think that too many Black parents who are either African or Caribbean or even South American, not all of them, but most of them, for some reason, culturally seem to want to use some form of corporal punishment to get their point across. I don't know why. Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of the way in which we disciplined our children in that respect, I think it's just the direct result of slavery, personally. Even in the way when I think back to, I mean, personally, I can't even say that I got beatings like that. So that's the first thing I got to really say. My mum and my dad never hit me. My mum, but nothing to how I know some of my friends got beaten in it. If anything, it was my granny that probably give me 1 or 2 bucks. You know what I mean? But I certainly remember people being beaten, you understand? And now I'm a big woman and I can reflect. They were direct, straight remnants of slavery. There's just no way. Like, when you're getting told to go and get the switch or go and get the weapon of them are just straight remnants of slavery. What does the family think to that? Go and get the belt. Go and get the
weapon. I agree.
I've heard that still post-traumatic.
Some people were told
even the way they talking while they beating you.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Don't rare.
Yep.
Oh, listen. I mean, like I said, I'm not saying that I didn't get any little, because you know what I mean, but I see people get beaten, and the problem is now it's that fine line in it. Well, when I say that fine line, because I do believe that a time might come when you have to get a box or kick.
And
No, big and serious, man. Because, and I think especially this is what I've always said, and I kind of stick to it still, although I've never really said it live on air. It could be argued, but like I think that some of our children are quite tenacious. You understand me? And sometimes little Johnny ain't gonna take a talking, and a time's gonna have to come where, do you know what I mean? Little Johnny needs to know what I want, man. So I don't think it's. I'm not saying it's the best thing, but sometimes I think it may be the last. What's the word? The last.
resort.
Yeah, 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 definitely. But then at that point now, that's when it becomes political now because it's all about reasonable force. Do you know what I mean? And then obviously that's why we're in a situation now where we are no longer, or people are no longer allowed to, I mean, hit it because obviously some people were taking taking the piss and just abusing their children. But what I would like to then ask, and I don't know, I hope it's not moving the thing forward, but I just like obviously in England certainly mandated like punishment, and that's when children were allowed to be hit in schools was done about what, about 40 years ago, give or take. Family, would that be about right? Would that be about right, family?
Yeah, I think so.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then
yeah,
within that time or over that time, more and more rights have been taken away from parents themselves in terms of the same thing. Whereby now I think we're at a point where, what is it? You can't leave a mark, or there can be no whales or something like that. I mean, I haven't really kept, but what I really wanted to ask is that do we think it has a positive or negative effect on the children's behaviour in England? That's really what I'm coming to ask still. You know what I mean? Bearing in mind, you know what I mean, the school has very little, this impact on the child or responsibility. The parent's got one arm task behind its back. Police, you know what I mean, cops are the ops, and all these various things. So, like, where, yeah, do we think it's made a positive or negative impact? That's really the question that I'm asking.
Has what given a positive or negative impact? Sorry, I just missed.
The reduction of um, being able to discipline your child in the way in which you feel fit.
I think it's created a negative. It's made things worse, more and more. And when I say reduction, I don't mean necessarily using force, but even simply calling a kid in for what you call detention. Kids don't have to turn up. They can just tell their teachers to get lost. They can swear at the teachers, and there's no form of reprisal or repercussions. So because, as you say, there is a lack of any form of control that teachers have, you can't do anything. Plus, most things that the teachers might try and do, parents will rebel against as well. So the teachers might find that they are also having to deal with parents who are saying, no, you can't do that with my child. You can't discipline my child like this or hold him back for detention or whatever. So I think taking away the powers over a period of time has made it more difficult for teachers to enforce some form of control. Plus, I think a lot of the parents themselves, there are a number of parents who are, what's that saying? The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. If you see a child that's very aggressive and violent and has a lot of self-loathing, I think if you look close to home, you might be able to find the answers there as well. Lack of discipline or training at home.
But then, do you feel that there can be lack of discipline within the school system itself?
I think the lack of discipline in the school system helps to compound the problem. So it's a case of you already have a fire, and the lack of control in the school is the kerosene being poured onto an open fire. So the fire is already there. The school has contributed to a problem, but they didn't create that problem. They just made it worse, exasperated it.
When I worked in a elementary school, primary school, one of the areas in where teachers tried made attempts to try to discipline a child for not doing what they were supposed to do. Like if they were playing around in class and didn't finish all their work, then at lunchtime or recess when everyone went outside to play, that they would have to do their work. Well, they passed a policy that says, due to all the students being, children trying to combat childhood diabetes and obesity and so forth, that recess is the one time where a child is able to play. You can't take away recess, right? It has the teacher now has to be very creative in what type of consequence they're going to give this child for their actions. And a lot of times, what you need school and parent partnerships. If you don't have school and parent partnerships, it's not going to work. You need to have a teacher to say, "Hey, mom, hey, dad, this is what Johnny was doing today in class. I redirected him several different times. He, refused to. He even, you know, kissed his teeth at me and blah blah blah." And the mother, father, oh yeah, okay. Well, Johnny, PS4 is going up, such and such. Okay, you're gonna write 100 times. I will behave myself, and whatever it is that the parents choose to do, you know. But it needs to be parent, school, and home working together. And a lot of times it just doesn't happen. So you have parents who are entirely frustrated. They feel like they don't have control. And then you have the school feeling frustrated. They feel they don't have control.
I agree with that, and
Yeah.
I agree. But interesting because we go back to what I think I mentioned earlier, and what was
Mhm.
mentioned again by 99, and I came across this by the American Psychological Association, saying that corporal punishment in Black communities is not an intrinsic cultural tradition, but racial trauma. And it goes on to talk about slavery and how Europeans imposed something of themselves onto us. So it became like a reactionary culture that we adopted because they were struggling to find, as it says here, historians and anthropologists have found no evidence that ritualistic forms of physical discipline of children existed in pre-colonial West African societies prior to the Atlantic slave trade. West African societies held children in a much higher regard than slave societies in the Atlantic world, which placed emphasis on Black bodies as property, not as human beings. West Africans believed that children came from the afterlife, that they were gods or reincarnated ancestors who led profoundly spiritual lives and held extraordinary mystical powers that could be harnessed through ritual practice for the good of the community. In fact, it was believed that coercion and hitting a child could scare off their soul. Indigenous people of North America held similar beliefs. As colonization, slavery, and genocidal violence made life harsher for these groups, parenting practices also grew harsher. This is by the American Psychological Association,
Could you send that on the
printed,
back chat as well?
sure, yeah,
Brother?
back in 2017. So I'll put that back in there. But it's interesting that 99 came up with that. And I mentioned it earlier in that article I read by the New York Times. So they really are challenging this corporal punishment as being very detrimental and not actually being traditional.
The part of scaring the soul. What
Yeah.
was it? Scaring the. What did it say? It says something like scaring something
Oh
in the.
yes, it says that beating the child is such that that because apparently the children had extraordinary mystical powers, and that by beating them, that you
Mm.
could scare off their soul. Hitting a child could scare off their soul.
And
And
that's true. How like it's sort of like the whole reincarnation thing, and why children when they're younger exhibit behaviors of that is not basically is not from the immediate family, and these children seem to be in their own little world with their own little memories, um even without experience, and sort of like if you uh have give that child some sort of trauma in any sense, it could wake them up, like not wake them up, but like could have just divert them from that sort of mind frame they were in and put them in a different mind frame, if that makes sense.
I definitely agree with that. I definitely agree. I think it has. I mean, I have experience because I did grow up as a child in Lagos, Nigeria, and I did witness a lot of beatings being done to kids in schools because I was growing up in a society where corporal punishment is no big deal, and I have witnessed cases where children were beaten literally from their head to their toes. Me personally, I never saw what good it did. I personally don't want to ever do that to a child. I think there are many other ways. I think one of the ways I mentioned is from childhood, learning how to sign language with your kid. So that element of communication is still there. You're able to communicate with each other and there's no sense of frustration. And no matter how bad they do things, I don't think hitting them is going to make them know that what they've done is wrong. It's just going to make them know, oh, if I don't want to get hit, don't do that again. But they might not actually fully understand why what they did is wrong. So I think communication, and I don't think that the parents should pass on their bad habits to their kids by being aggressive, overtly aggressive and violent. Sure, you can teach them self-defense, but that's something else. But I do think you shouldn't do that. Basically, there are other ways. One way I mentioned was sign language from childhood. The other way is actually taking time out to communicate with your kid. And if you don't know the answer, then tell your child, I don't know. So if your kid is asking you a whole bunch of questions when you take them for a walk in the park, why is the grass green? Why is the sky blue? Why are the clouds white? If you don't know, make it a family thing. You can sit down with your kid, maybe in front of a computer. Let's see why the grass is green. And you find out about chlorophyll and you talk about it instead of getting angry and hitting them, telling them to shut up or something. That's what I believe.
But surely, witness, kids aren't getting beaten for that, though. Surely, not for being inquisitive and asking them kind of questions.
Kids get beaten for all kinds of crazy reasons in the 21st century.
That is crazy,
to be
though.
honest, yeah,
Imagine that. Why is
Maybe
the
not
grass
beaten
green?
though,
Pow.
but
but
shouted at though.
yeah, but to be honest, I've seen that like you just like my one of my mates, yeah, like when we were younger, he's asked his mom bare question, and then his mom would be driving, and his mom would stop the car and like, can you shut up about that? Like she just give him like a slap or something. You're always talking. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely witnessed the slap on the mouth or the pulling of the ears for asking too many questions.
I think
Mm-hmm.
I think that I think that uh, it's every parent who hits their child like the ones that we're describing right now. No, but I think that overall, the hitting is an act of violence, right? So just because we like, I wasn't hit very much either when I was young, um, but I was exposed to a certain level of violence. I will say that, so, and I think that violence was normalized for me. I shared all the time how much I enjoyed watching violence on television. It wasn't like, oh my God, this is so horrible. Those animals. I'm like, oh yeah, punch them. You know what I'm saying? Like that was because of what my level of exposure to violence is, and um, uh, I think that there are some parents who lack a lot of skills, and they hit their children for every kind of reason when they are frustrated and irritated. It just happens. Did is Brother Shakara still on? He stayed easy on here,
Yep.
quiet. We want to bring
I'm
you into
here,
the
sis.
convo. We want to bring you into the convo.
Can you hear me?
Big up,
Yes.
bro.
Bless up, bless up.
Bless up.
Good
What's up,
evening.
bro? Powers.
So we chat about get the licks.
Yes, we're talking about getting licks. Yes.
Yeah,
Talking
it's a
about
sticky one, you know.
parenting.
When I was little, like I always used to say I wouldn't beat my children. And I suppose I've softened on that kind of hardline kind of stance as an adult, but I would always try to, avoid that circumstance. I think there's two things in it. I don't necessarily think that licks is abuse in and of itself. You know what I'm saying? I think that there's intelligent ways to administer licks. But I also think that dropping licks is not a substitute for skilled parenting. And I don't know the extent to which like we're using licks to kind of mask the fact that we don't know how to parent nowadays. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's more important to learn other skills, you know what I mean, of communication and discipline. You know what I'm saying? But I don't necessarily think that dropping licks is always abuse in every circumstance. You know what I mean? So I'm just, I'm on the fence with it to a degree.
Okay. Oh man, I had my question and I just lost it that quickly.
We are aware that any
What
form
about
of
the punish?
physical touch of the kid is actually a criminal offense. We are aware of that, right?
Say that
What
again.
about
Say that again, witness.
That touching the child in any shape, way, or form which is painful to the child is actually a criminal offense. We all are aware of that. I'm
Mm,
just asking.
no, it's not, brother witness. That's
Really?
not.
Okay.
I was
No,
gonna say I'm not sure it is. I'm not
corporal
sure it is.
punishment is not a criminal offense. You're not. You're not. You're not like crossing any boundaries if you, as long as you do not leave a mark on your child, it's not deemed abuse. So corporal punishment is still
You're
corporal
sounding.
punishment is still.
You're
No, I'm just
sounding
telling you.
like.
I'm telling. No, I'm telling you the. I'm telling you. Just stated a fact. You thought it was a fact. So I'm giving you the truth of how
Okay.
the
But do you
law
know what
states.
though, sis? I've heard something towards that one there too as well because that one indirectly discriminates against black people because black people could take a couple more beats because it's not going to show up on their skin as much as a white person. So it's almost like saying
Hmm.
black people can take a different
Wait.
level
So
of beats.
who?
You
So
get me?
black people are saying what? Black people are saying that.
Now, not black people are saying, but I think that whole mark rule, not leaving a mark, like on a black person, it may take a couple more beats before a mark is even visible. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's not really a consistent measurement of
Hmm.
the
That's true.
severity of the beating.
So basically, it's allowable for a black child to get a little bit more trauma than a non-black child. Basically, at least from a legal perspective, you
Yeah,
Well,
know.
that's what I
indirectly.
read in that article that I read earlier. It was saying the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, like if um when you're talking from a legal perspective and child and family services getting involved, you know, if your child tried to touch the stove and you took your hand and you popped them on their hands and you told them no, don't do that, don't touch that. Daddy told you don't touch that, and you're not listening, and they started crying, oh, and they went to school and was like, my daddy hit my hand, and
what
the
about
hand looks normal. It's kind of not. You don't really have a case. They don't really. I'm not saying. I mean, they may do an investigation, but it's not going to be founded.
so what about um because when I was growing up I did some corporal exercises as I call them now. There was one particular one that my father would tell me to do when he wasn't bothered. And it's called like planter les oignons. It's like basically you put your finger down and you lift one leg up and you have to like stay in that position for a period of time. And there's another one where you kneel down and you put your hands in the air and you have to stay there a couple of times.
Yeah, I know
And
those ones. Or
Or
you
and
jump.
face the wall. Yeah, I've
yeah,
heard that one.
and there's grimper le mur, where it's like you literally like put your hand in front of you and you literally do a handstand while leaning on the floor while leaning on the wall and literally put yourself in that position.
You see
I,
these things. That are these things traditional, or were they
I'm.
given passed
I
down by
mean,
colonialists? I don't know.
hmm. I mean, those are definitely forms of what they would call hazing. Absolutely.
Is that abuse, or is that like the same as getting licks, or is that more acceptable? Is it not acceptable? So like you're not really physically touching them. It's just like, you
Long,
know,
like straining in it, like they're in a
yeah.
position that is strenuous.
Yo, I remember, yeah. I remember like being in that position for like an hour, but I was looking at my mom like, please help me. Oh
I
man.
see on styles, yeah. Like I'll share with you what I do in it, yeah. It's called quality corrections, in it. Yeah, give me one sec. So children start off new with much to learn, with many mistakes still to be made and many hurdles to overcome. Our responsibility as parents is to equip them with the tools they need to overcome these, or at the very least show them how they can acquire these tools. One of the best tools for parents to assist their children on this journey is quality correction. Quality correction is more effective than just telling them how it's done. First step, yes. So when they're in the action, you're supposed to observe them, right? This is when they're proper young. It's important to stay switched on, to have your attention on the child from the beginning, or know the beginning of the behavior that you want to make the quality correction to. Judge how they're performing it. Identify the parts um, you don't understand, and process your judgment into sentences that will be completely understood. Then afterwards, you're supposed to praise them for the things that they did right, to reinforce them and ask them questions about where they could have improved. And then after that, you explain and you give them corrections. Then you confirm their understanding, and then you retry it. And you do it as soon as possible so they can get the correction. And then you keep doing that until the correction is made.
That sounds pretty good.
I'm
Yeah,
still con-
go on, bro.
No, please continue, Shaka.
No, yeah, it's kind of the things I was talking about in it, and just in terms of skilled parenting. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, discipline is about correction, and instilling kind of standards of behavior. And you know, like beating is not always going to do that in it. So it's about finding ways to communicate what it is that you're trying to communicate, and you get the child to listen. You know what I'm saying? Even if they don't understand sometimes, because understanding is not necessarily a prerequisite of compliance. And sometimes you just need to comply when you're a child. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's the kind of point I was making. It's just methods, yeah, of applying skilled parenting. I think parenting is an art, and it's the number one thing that we're going to be doing in our lives. But it's the thing that we're least prepared for. Like we're not trained to become parents, and we should be.
Yeah,
I think
definitely
girls
think
are
these
trained
are
for it though. There was
I don't think
something.
girls are trained.
I,
I think girls are instilled with the desire to become parents,
yeah,
but with skills to be a parent. I'm not sure that's the case.
yeah, that's a different set of skills.
100.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
what were you
like
saying, Witness, when you said the girls are trained? Girls are trained for what?
Oh, I was thinking when I was younger, I remember when I was in a sociology class, I learned about something called the socialization of gender roles, in
Mm-hmm.
which each child is taught how they should behave as a boy, as a girl, later as a man, as a woman. So you would have young girls being given baby dolls with prams so they could copy their mother, or they've been given dolls that cried and they would have to know how to hold and hug the doll so that it would stop crying. So they were slowly but surely being socialized into thinking this is what you're supposed to do when you get bigger. You're supposed to have a baby and you're supposed to help it to stop crying. Whereas the boys were busy running out with toy guns, shooting or kicking footballs. So they didn't have any idea. And if you gave them the baby doll, they'd probably kick it like a rugby ball or something. So that was what I was getting at, the socialization of gender roles from a young age. So
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that. The assessment and what it produces in the children. And so I'd revise my statement and I'd say that there's an element to which girls are prepared to become mothers of babies, but not necessarily raise children.
Oh yeah, and I mean if you ever like spend time in a daycare or kindergarten or first grade, you I've seen kids take their belts and beat each other in play. Oh, they are mimicking what happens at home. They are you have been bad. They're hitting each other like one person's the parent and they're doing that.
Mm.
So it's I get it that young girls are socialized, but I guess that when they're like 5, 6, 7 years old, that boys and girls are both mimicking what happens in their parents. I remember, not to really change the subject, but just to show how whatever they're exposed to, they're gonna mimic it. Around that age, my son, I was deep into a Pentecostal church, and my son used to pretend to get the Holy Ghost and fall out on the floor. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Because that's what he saw all the time. Young boys who see daddy beating up mommy, they come to school and want to fight girls. That's what they see. So it's this is definitely things for uh, people, especially if they don't have any children, if they do have small ones, to think about how they're teaching these lessons and if these lessons are really worth what could potentially be the aftermath of maybe them going to school and taking off their belt and beating their friends, mimicking what's going on at home and things like that, because it does happen. So I wanted to ask a question. Do we think that the age of parents plays a role into how they develop their parenting style, or it's just it is what it is?
Theoretically, it shouldn't matter,
Mm.
but
I,
realistically, if we look at the world we're living in, we have children who are raising children. So mistakes are being passed on to another generation. That's what I think.
I think I don't have the stats, but this is my opinion. Like nowadays, or like of the last couple of generations, max, that children have been out of the parents' house earlier, so there's more independence coming with that, and so there is the more of a freedom to have your own parenting style, but not everybody is benefiting from that freedom. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
Yeah,
I missed the
yeah.
question though. Could you repeat, please?
I was addressing the age and asking if the age of the parents played a role into their parenting style.
Mm, it's a good question.
Yeah, I think that there's this saying of when you know better, you do better, right? But if you don't ever get to an age where you knowing better, right, and you already got the kid, it kind of you're not able to grow to that place where you can do better. You know what I'm saying? You I would definitely say that's the case for me. Um, I think that I definitely have, at the bare minimum, I have more patience at now than I did when I became a mother.
Mm.
Why is that though, melanated goddess? What made you? I want to know more.
Maturity, just maturity.
Okay, all right.
Just I had a mindset that like my child was like a robot, right? Because like now I got this being that I control. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm just, so you supposed to sit when mommy say sit, and you get up when mommy say get up, and you do, and that's not how it is. This is a person, a being. Like sometimes I wake up, my alarm clock goes off, and I'm like, oh my God, I know I have to go to work. I don't want to go to work. And nobody takes a belt and hits me to get out the bed. But somehow I feel like this being that I love, cherish so much. I was so happy for them to be born. The weight that, because they not moving as fast as I tell them to move, I hitting them. That's just wrong. It's just wrong. I gotta find out what's wrong with my baby. Why, some incentives, some consequences. Okay, if you're late today, then when you come home, you're going to bed early because like I could have been creative in figuring out those things. And what I'm saying is that now that I have more patience, I'm more patient in trying to get there. Whereas you know, um, at a young age, I didn't have much in my toolbox. I just didn't.
Mm.
Mm. So, like, what are the values that we should be teaching children as parents, and the values that I suppose as parents that we should be having? What do you not think?
What are the values? What?
That we should be looking to uphold as parents, and the values that we should be looking to teach our children.
Respect for yourself and respect for your community.
I think it got answered a lot earlier. Ask that question again, but I'm sure I answered it a lot earlier.
The values that we should be upholding as parents, and also the values we should be teaching our children.
Patience is one. That's a communication. Patience to communicate. That I mean, it might sound simple, but that's one thing which is severely lacking. Patience to communicate, to actually teach. Sometimes we might be in a hurry to teach things a lot faster, so there's a lack of patience, which then leads to corporal punishment, which could lead to aggression. So patience, understanding, and really having patience to teach, patience to communicate, because failure to communicate is one of the major problems. So that is key, and I don't think a lot of people show that. I could be wrong, but that's my opinion.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Patience.
Hard work. You work hard for the things you want, and you persevere until you get them.
Mm.
Okay.
Actually, that's where I come in. Because that's a very good point. Because at my age, I don't believe in hard work and staying on the straight and narrow will necessarily lead you to a better life. I think that's what you like to tell kids, but in reality, you get people like Donald Trump who don't stay on the straight and narrow and go on to become powerful leaders. So, and you get some people who choose to live the gangster life, and they make a lot of money, and they have a lot of people from the opposite sex. So I don't know. I mean, it's
So
almost like you want to teach your kid to be like a Spartan. If you're gonna commit a crime, don't get caught, because if you get caught, then we'll punish you.
I'll tell you this daggone
I agree.
witness,
It's
yo.
far more viable to work smart than it is to work hard. But I think if hard work um, is gonna be the off put, or is gonna put someone off for even attempting something, then that's not a good attitude to have, especially
But
if it's
what
something
would
you
you define as working hard? Doing your revisions or finding a way you can get the answers to the exam?
want. Going above and beyond to achieve your goals, whatever they might be. They don't always have to be like physically strenuous. And again, I guess that's where working smart comes into it. For me, when I say hard work, it's more about the attitude. It's more about the understanding that um, anything worth having takes effort. Do you know what I'm saying? Whether that's prior thought, planning, um, continuous trying. Do you know what I mean? I
Even
think
things
it's more
like
for the attitude.
networking, even things like networking is takes effort, and a lot of young people need to be able to see the value in networking and relationship building. They're more focused on having conflict and pushing people away and only dealing with a small group. And they need to get to the place where they can see the value in expanding their network, and seeing how that's beneficial for them. So I kind of I'm just tying that into like the whole hard work thing, because that takes effort, that takes work for you to do, and you may not see the reward right then and there.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
But what are the values, though? That's the thing. I think we're making assumptions
The
because
value, so that's what my first value was: respecting yourself and respecting your community. So if you respected your community, then you would see the people in your neighborhood as part of your community. So you would see
Mm.
value in extending and establishing a network with them.
Mm.
You want to know who the meat the person in the meat store is. You want to know who delivers your trash, who delivers your mail, who is in the local hardware store. You know, when I go to Starbucks, they like saying my name. Hey, all set. Like, you know what I'm saying? They know me. You know what I'm saying? Um it should be that way. If I lived in an entirely like a black community, we should all be uh um it's that they should be a network, an extended network.
I agree
uh,
with you, sis, man. That respecting yourself is a big thing.
Hmm.
Definitely respecting the community. I agree with that 100%.
We wouldn't be seeing
Yeah.
all these young boys underwear if they respected themselves.
well, where
You
do they
know.
get their respect from? Who teaches them respect? Because to them, they're probably doing something which is respectful. To us, we might think that what they're doing is disrespectful, but who knows? Maybe someone older that they look up to has told them that's what you do for respect. It gets confusing now. Yeah, it's like what you think is family values to someone else might be different. You might think the family values that I teach this child is to fall in love, get married, start a family. Another person's set of family values might be to play around, have baby mamas all over the place, and have 6, 7 kids, different women, but he can still be a father to those 6, 7 kids. So I don't know, man. It gets confusing. It's not straightforward.
Polygamy, innit? Nation building.
Oh yes, yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's what he gonna say he doing. Oh Lord, he
But
gonna
yeah,
say
the
he a
relationship
polygamist.
thing,
He gonna say he a
that's what I was
polygamist.
gonna say as well. Like, I think the relationship point, like the value of a relationship is really important because, life is a team sport. So being able to get the right people on your team and everyone to be happy in that team and putting in maximum effort to win, like, yeah, I think it's really beneficial. And like, obviously it's gonna help them in every area of their life in it because everywhere is people.
Hmm.
Oh, oh, are we still sorry, it sounds a bit mad. Are we still talking about in regards to the young people, yeah?
Yeah, we talking
Yeah,
about
yeah.
values for the parents to have, and values for the parents to teach the kids.
Yeah. I mean, all I wanna kind of chime in and say is that I think also, what we also have is a reflection of, and I hate to say it, but well, in my opinion anyway, of do you know what I mean? A lot of children of having children, understand, where you have parents that don't necessarily have the full suit of armory themselves, who are then, you know what I mean, bringing in children into the world, and they might have a lack of you know what I mean, tools to basically pass on to the child. So I think that's also, I hope that's relevant to what you're saying, because I might be well out the loop, but number in my head. But yeah, man, I just think that a lot of parents don't really necessarily have the tools and the arsenal to really deal with children, especially in this society, man. You know what I mean? I don't know who, I can hear it echo. Hold on, what is that? Arsenal to really deal with children, especially in this society, man. Yeah, man.
From
Who
Shakara.
that? Shakara? Shakara? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Um, yeah, because I think I don't know if someone made the point before. I don't know if someone made the point before that the parents had. Oh no, that's it. Someone made the. I think it was Brother E that said that children are generally leaving home earlier. Is that what he said? I don't know if
Yeah,
someone
Did
said that.
he said
Yeah,
yeah?
yeah. So I think that kind of goes not kind of necessarily hand in hand, but I think that because the young people are leaving earlier, they're becoming parents on average earlier. I would say in England, although someone might bring some different statistics and tell me something different. But certainly when I was coming up, obviously things like teenage pregnancy and things like that was a big no-no. It was a big cloud. You understand me? And that was if a woman was like 18, 17, 18, 19. Now we know that, 16 is nothing. So, I'm just trying to make the point that if you got a 16-year-old who's had a child at 16, that 16-year-old is now 32 dealing with a rampant hormonal teenager. Do you know what I mean? And you can paint other scenarios to go with that, man. So yeah, I just think there's an element of that still, man. And then obviously with age as well comes patience. Do you know what I mean? And I think the older you get, I think you probably, yeah, definitely. The older you get, you're definitely better equipped to have a child. I would say in terms of maybe tolerance and emotions and so forth and so on. So yeah,
Listen, man, you right on the. It's so many. I know a couple of people that's like in their 40s, like 43, 44. They grandparents. I'm like, that's crazy. Right? I'm like, yo, that's crazy because I remember my
what are you talking about?
grandma.
40s, sis? There's people in their early 30s that are grannies. What's wrong with you, woman?
How you a grandparent? I'm saying like let's say your child had let's say you had
You
the
have a
child at
child at
15.
16, sis. You're
Right?
32, your
15,
child
15 and
16.
15 is 30. Another 15 will be 45. Rise, you going younger than 15?
Say that again.
I'm saying 15 and times 3 is 45. I'm saying that
Uh,
if each mother got pregnant at 15,
mm.
the grandmother would be 45. But Rise, how
Nah,
much
man.
younger
There's
she gonna
younger
be?
grannies than that, sis, man. I'm
Lord,
telling
but
you, man.
that'll be for a great grand though, isn't it? Just for a grandchild, it's like you could be 16 and then have a child. Now your child is 16 when you're 32, and
Exactly.
then they have a child in it. So you could
Exactly.
be 33 and you have a grandchild.
That's it. And that's going on right now, sis.
oh, I would
Right
think.
Yeah, I
now.
remember
I
there was
would
some girl from my
think.
ends. She was having 5 youths by the time she before she was 20. It was crazy.
Before
No,
20. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is mad.
that is
But
very mad.
that's normal though. Well, sorry, it was
No, it's
It's
not
like
normal.
it
That's
the
not
was
dad.
normal.
It's
In
crazy.
some
The dad
parts
was
of
like
England,
19 or something.
that is normal. I'm telling you.
Like,
And so,
So
none
what kind
fucking.
of
especially
what kind of parenting y'all think going on up in there? I'm just saying.
no parenting.
especially those that rely on the social, you know what I mean, on the dole and that, because they definitely think that a child means money. And back in the day, what I mean, it's fucked up, but some parents encourage their child to have a child and all that type of malarkey for various reasons.
What kind of reason? What could be a reason? What I don't understand.
To
The
get
child is still a
to
child.
get to get well, you see, again, I'm going back to what Brother E, mentioned about, children leaving home early and so forth. There was definitely a time where and it still happens in England now. I'm sure it still kind of happens, but I mean, parents would write I shouldn't even probably say this on air to artists, but yeah, you know what I mean,
But
right?
okay, so somebody put in the chat for them to have social housing. So
Exactly,
I
exactly.
feel I mean, Lord, listen, we as a community we got to do better. We got to,
But
But
so
that's
what
we
not
age do you
can't.
just
think that children
um.
should come out of the house?
What's that, babe?
What age do you think that children should be coming out of the house?
I came
That's
out
to,
of the
that's to
Yeah.
everyone
house.
as well.
I came out of the house at the age of 10. At the age of 10, I was
So
sent
you
away.
went to boarding school.
I was sent away from my homeland and ended up in a country where they spoke a different language and the weather was freezing cold and the food was different and no relatives around.
Oh,
So,
sorry.
Oh
mm,
Oh.
no.
Did you go to boarding school?
yes. And
Yeah.
it's no picnic, regardless of what people say, especially when
Mm,
you're a 10-year-old kid and you ain't got anyone around and you're in some village somewhere where there's no black people, certainly no Yoruba people.
So
mm.
let me ask this question to the people in the chat as well. What in the chat? What age do you think children or young adults should leave the house? What do you all think
So
of?
what's everyone on the panel saying then? So what age? We ain't got an age. Witness, you said you left at 10,
I
but
think it's.
what
I
age
think
would you
it's.
say?
Me at the age when
I
they
think
want to
it's.
leave, when they want to leave. So I keep them close. I'm always there as a dad. And when they want to leave the house, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, whatever age, I support them. But I don't kick them out when they're kids.
Yeah, I don't think I mean I'm striving with my young buck. I'm striving for somewhere around 24, maybe 23. When I want him to be like really established, where you know I don't want to be a helicopter mom and all that kind of stuff. I want to just be able to be like, look, you good. I've taught you everything. You've seen how to, and I've been able to kind of supervise you doing certain adult tasks on your own, and now you know what I'm saying. The training wheels are off. You got it. You got a nice little nest egg. You have a level of some business savviness about yourself, and you're not just getting this apartment or whatever, and you're just going to be paycheck to paycheck. Like, I didn't bust my behind so that you could be in that position. Like, I feel like each generation should do better, right? So, you know, my upbringing wasn't perfect, but I had a better life and upbringing than my mother. She came to this country for me to have a better life, and I did certain things so that my son could have a better life. So I'm not gonna just put him out to be like, yeah, you gotta struggle. Like, that doesn't even make any sense, you know. And our counterparts aren't doing that. Our counterparts are not doing that. My friend just shared with me his one of his friends' parents bought a house in Georgia because the child got accepted to a house in Georgia, to a college in Georgia. So the child's gonna have roommates in the house in Georgia, and then when she graduates college, she gets a house as her graduation present. I'm like, yo, we need to be doing crap like that for our kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's smart. This young lady is gonna be what, 24 years old with her first property. She's not gonna be like, oh, you know what? I didn't do it on my own. This is the nonsense that we be saying in our community, and we need to get out of it. Because I'm sure
But
Donald
is
Trump
that smart,
got
sis?
help.
Is that smart, or is that just people in economical privilege? Because if you could afford to buy your child a house, then, like, you know what I mean? Kind of would,
No,
innit?
no, no, because that's a house is an asset, and the way in which some black people operate, they would have better bought their child a $60,000 car for a graduation present, where a car depreciates. This is some of the mentality of our people. Not saying
Yeah, I
all, but
think
I'm
the
just
car
saying.
thing is privilege as well. But I think the ability to buy your child a house as an incentive is reflective of that family's economical position. That's just not the reality for most of the families in our community, I don't think.
I was more so
But
speaking about.
it
Go
could
ahead.
be looked at like in terms of, okay, gifts being more investments than things that depreciate them.
Right. That's what I was
Absolutely,
focusing on.
man.
That's what I was
Going
focusing on,
forward,
like
that's
a stock,
definitely
some
what we have
stocks,
to do.
or get them an e-wallet or something like that. But instead, oh, I'll buy you 8 pairs of Jordans. What the frig I'm supposed to do with 8 pairs of Jordans? I mean, I know you could sell them, but I'm just saying, that
Yeah.
the what we put our value in,
Mm.
right? Because there are families that are in a position to do those things, right? We don't know if these people, if their current house that they have is really big, but I'm just saying when we have that excess, then we're like, oh, I want to put TVs in my car. I want to put spinning rims on my car. Like we find a place to spend on that money.
Well, that is true. In England, we are massive consumers. I presume it would be the same in the States, to be fair, sis.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can
Mm.
can I just say though, yeah, I think
Mhm.
that people that are able to get their children houses and them kind of things there is often not just a reflection of their family, but more a reflection of their community. And how that is organized, how wealth is organized on a community level. I'd say, you know what I mean, and I think that's the, and I think that's an essential important thing. Like we all heard the saying, it takes a village to raise a child, right? Um,
Mm.
and I think them like on them levels there, when you see whole communities doing things like that, it's less just that the individual family has got wealth, but more than that the community operates in a way to pass down certain things to their children. So it's not even about how much
Mhm.
an individual's got. It's just, you know what I'm saying? There are acts in the family that make this thing possible. So in
The
the
thing
community,
is, though, it's not even that. I mean, I don't want to say it's not that hard a thing to do. Sorry to cut you, Shakur. Sorry, babe.
everything less.
No, no. Yeah, I was just saying, it's probably um with good planning and a bit of group economics, it's probably not that hard a thing to do, sis, to be honest. So I do think it is a mindset as well. So even when you're talking about spinning rims and these different things, I do think it is a mindset that we need to change, especially when we talk about the up and coming generations about you know promoting more of assets and wealth as opposed to sort of depreciation and debt. Do you know what I mean? Because I think a lot of us, yeah, just deal with dead stuff really,
Mhm.
and yeah, so that's just sort of educational wealth as well. But yeah, man, just to chime in on what the sister said, still, man. But
Yeah,
I
because
think
I
that's
was
I
I
think
was
that's
just
a good
saying that.
idea, still. To be
Yeah,
fair,
I
and it
was
can be
saying that
done.
look at it like even if the economics is not on the same level, and you can't afford to get a single family home for your child, you can afford to get a townhome for your child. You can afford to get a condo, a 2 bedroom condo, and have a roommate. You see what I'm saying? Because what I'm saying is that like the cost of a house in Georgia is not the same as the cost of a house in California. That's number one. So I don't think that this family broke the bank. You know what I'm saying? You guys told me how much the houses go for in London, and that's you guys are right at the prices in New York. You know what I'm saying? Like it's very
yeah,
similar to New
trust.
York, but in Georgia, you talking about very minimal. But my thing is that when maybe they put their current home up for what do they call it? They use it as collateral to purchase the home or whatever. Just
Remortgage.
really, yeah, like just the
That's if they
mindset
own their
of,
house in the first place. But
yeah,
yeah, I hear what you're
but
saying, Sally.
just the mindset really of passing on some sort of asset, something
Intergenerational wealth.
from something that's going to increase in value. We need to be able to start doing that, and not only in the form of life insurance, but in the form of when we are alive. You know, teaching,
Mm.
because that's a teaching thing as well. Teaching your I'm not giving you no freaking vacation for you to go out there and get drunk and all this nonsense. I'm giving you advantage, a head up in life. That's dope.
Yeah, on the
And that
flip
ties
side
in
here,
with, mm,
sorry,
sorry,
sisters.
yeah, sorry, B. But a few weeks ago when he done the whole black privilege and that, I think that all ties in, man. Sorry, go on, BT.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, on the flip side of it, yeah, I know of some families who actually encourage their child to leave the home as an economical strategy.
Mm.
Because if they get social housing and then get certain concessions and discount on buying a house. Now that's two homes potentially in the family. It don't necessarily mean that they have to live in isolation. In many instances, like that child is still at home. It's just, on
That's
paper.
very true. Very true. I know that's very true. And that's the next thing. Sorry to chime in again, family, but for real, man. Because also it's about how we utilize or underutilize the system. You know what I'm saying to you? So many of us will probably leave for real and leave, and just everyone's living independently, and everyone's paying that independent, like those different pots of money, as opposed to even the scenario that B2 just said about, yeah, there's individual houses, but the house is still under one command kind of thing, in it. Like I know them ones. Yeah, and that makes sense.
The help
That's
to buy
working.
scheme.
And then they all get right to buy and right to yeah, that's working the system. Yeah, definitely.
I was listening to a podcast here by this man called Chucky Online. Yeah, got a thing called the Half Card Podcast.
He's a bit funny, that you man. I'm not sure about that you, boy.
Which one? He's got a colleague, that really tall, skinny guy. Who's always there. Yes.
Oh yeah.
But on this one, this Somali sister, and she was talking about how basically her generation, the ones after like her, are kind of leaving the house, in their 20s and that. And he said that the elders in the community are having problems with it because they're used to them staying in the yard until they're married. You know what I'm saying? And they don't understand like why you're trying to leave the yard in it. Like, you can earn money and put it down and save. You ain't got to pay no mortgage, no rent. You know what I'm saying? And their vibe is, until you're getting married, like you really just have no reason to be leaving home, innit? It's just like, you know what I'm saying? Economically for them, it just makes sense to stay at yard until you're kind of starting your own family, so to speak. Which is an interesting way to look at it. You know what I mean?
The grass is always greener, boy.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent strategy.
This goes back to what was mentioned earlier.
Went away to college, especially if your child went away to college, then when they graduate college and they come back home, then most a good portion of their resources can pay down their debt that they have, while they're working, and they're seeking out their life partner and so forth, and they can go from home to being married.
But at the same time, though, what about the time, like, where you go off into the world before you get married and you experience some stuff, like, just...
Well, I mean, I can appreciate both strategies. I can appreciate both strategies. That strategy, it's not the most economical. So in that strategy, the focus would be on life experience. But then there's,
Let me tell you guys something that you don't even know about, which is going to surprise you. Back in the 80s, there was a thing that Nigerian families used to do, where they used to send their kids who were 5, 6, 7, 8, and they would send them to England, even America, to stay with foster parents. And these foster parents would look after those kids. So those kids, when they're 5, 6, 7, would be taken away from their homeland, and they would spend a few weeks, maybe even months, with an English family. And in some cases, they would then be introduced into an English school, which I can tell you was a shock to the system, but they learned very quickly how to be able to survive psychologically and emotionally without their parents around. So it's almost like a Spartan-esque, Agogi style way of teaching your kids. But their parents, a lot of Nigerian parents, were doing that in the 80s. So I don't know, that's one way of parenting, because the kid learns very quickly how to survive without their mommy or their daddy around. I can tell you that. Yeah.
Thank God for that, witch, man. He's going to talk about children being left at the airport. Phew.
Yeah, that's... Did any of you read that book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad? It was released in 2002. Did you say you had E?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. It comes into the whole affair of parenting because there's this guy called Robert Kiyosaki, and he's got two dads, and he talks about his life growing up. And one dad is incredibly wealthy and powerful. His biological father is an educated college professor, and the other guy that he knows is someone who lives close to their house, who's a very wealthy man, and he basically gives you both dads who offer him conflicting advice on money. And it's interesting that that parenting that comes from both of them, because he shows you the different styles of parenting from two different men, one who's a wealthy man who's started up his business, the other who's a college professor. So that the wealthy man is basically telling him how to make money as a kid. He says, what, you need some money? He goes, yeah. You go, okay, go and do something, impress me, or, you know, try and tell him to be savvy about money, how to make money. Whereas his dad will just say, okay, wash my car and I'll give you $10. And it's a different way of educating a child, a different parenting way, in that you're almost telling the kid to be very proactive in the way they try to survive in society, whereas you're not always cuddling them and trying to provide a safety net for them. So I don't know, it depends on each parent, but this is where it becomes controversial, because which parenting style is good and which one is is not good. So I don't know, it becomes
oh, sorry. But also to add to that, brother witness, it's about trying to, and I think, sorry to cut in again, but it even ties in again with what I was saying about the whole sort of intergenerational wealth, etc., etc. Because within that rich dad poor dad thing, yeah, he spoke about the equal economic quadrant, right, where you had the you know, the four squares, where you've got
you still remember that. Wow, I'm impressed. Please teach.
No, am I right? Because I might be
I think
right.
yeah, you're right, but I've forgotten a lot about it. I guess it's you and E who probably still remember more from that book.
Okay, because it was a few years ago. But yeah, basically where you got the sort of four square, I think it's called the economic quadrant, yeah. So you've got, I think on the left side is like the employee, yeah, and then you got the self-employed, and then if you go over to the other side, and then it's like the the employer, isn't it? And then you have investor and so forth and so on. Well, I shouldn't even say that because there's only four. But for me, one of the tricks is definitely for us to go, because most of us are in the left side of the quadrant, i.e., we're just employees or self-employed. Yeah, and that's not probably the way in which we're going to be able to encourage sort of intergenerational wealth and so forth. So it's about trying to move us over to the other side of either being, you know, the employer or the other one.
Yes, that's why I think it was 35 minutes ago, I was challenging what B2 said when he said something about parenting. You teach your kids hard work. And I said, well, what would we define as hard work? Because the traditional way of hard working, you're going to end up on the left side where you're working for someone. And I'm thinking you don't want to do that.
Which basically keeps the right side going.
Yes.
You understand? So the left side needs the right side. But yeah, so we definitely want our children to be moving over to the right side, man. 100%, man.
Exactly. You need to be encouraging them.
What?
That's why next week's show is going to be on Black economics.
Wait. I thought why do you say what? Really, I thought you was talking about towards like independence.
What, really? We don't want to just work hard for the white man? Maybe the white man might give us a piece of pie at the table. I don't know.
But yo, next week's show is going to be on Black economics.
Black economics.
So we can definitely chop that up a bit more.
Yes, we definitely.
The final part here that we didn't cover here is about whether we think parents should be leaders, or are they leaders?
Yes.
Witness, you said yes.
No, Shakara said yes. Please explain, Shakara.
Well, I think leading is a natural phenomenon. I don't I don't think this is complicated. Leading implies setting an example, implies creating an environment to learn, and exercise the role of a primary teacher. Leading implies, kind of laying out a path for people to follow. All of these things are roles of parents. So yeah, if you're a parent and not a leader, I don't know what you're doing.
Well, yeah. I mean, when you put it like that, definitely that's definitely how it's supposed to be, Shakara. I will give you that. That is how it's supposed to be. Parents are supposed to lead their children, guide them. Um, you know, yes. Is that what's happening in a lot of cases? Yes, right? But we definitely need a whole lot of work with the leading part.
I think the world is messed up the way it is because of a lot of bad parenting. That's why we got problems being recycled over and over again. Hatred, war, anger. It's the way people are teaching their kids. Or in some cases, the way kids are not being raised. And so they end up in foster care or in orphanages or whatever you call them. And then they get treated badly. And that contributes. So there's
And
obviously a
the
fundamental problem with parenting somewhere in all communities.
right, because the numbers don't lie. You know what I'm saying? Like the numbers don't lie. The tens of thousands of black kids in the states that are in foster care. It's um it's truly sad. It's truly sad that
Yeah, and I wanted to bring that up. I was wondering, I was going to ask you when we're going to talk about that, because that's one of the problems in our community. Most people don't seem to talk about. We have a large amount of kids end up in children's homes, black kids. They stay there for a long time because we have a very shortage of black couples that actually adopt. So these kids, they stay there right till the very end, experiencing sexual abuse, physical abuse, racial abuse. That's one problem, one of many problems that gets overlooked. The other is domestic abuse, because I live quite close to a place. What's the word for it? Where women who are being hit.
domestic violence, domestic violence.
Yes, but there's a name for those kind of buildings. Sorry?
Shelter, domestic violence
Yes,
shelter.
the shelters. They try and make it very inconspicuous, no signs, nothing. But I can always tell when I walk past that that's for battered women. I can see them. I can hear their kids crying when they're looking after the kids, and yeah. So we don't. That's another problem we don't talk. So maybe that's something we should look at in the future. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely, that's an important issue.
Anybody else got a
Important stuff.
response for the if parents are leaders for that question right before we close out?
Yeah, I think naturally, I agree with Shakara, man. I think it's just a natural role you assume as a parent. Um, yeah, man, it's just natural, isn't it? Your child knows nothing when they're born, and they constantly leaning on you to set the direction. So just out of that, you're already playing a leadership role, regardless of whether you're doing it good or not. Do you get me? You're still doing it.
Okay, that
Yeah,
makes sense.
that's
That makes
interesting.
sense.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a good way to put it.
Yeah, more time the kid's not gonna know, innit, whether you're a good leader or not until they see other examples.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's true in it. You know that when you see someone being a bad parent, they're gonna pay the price. It's like, it's like later on you're gonna have to deal with all of the fuckery that you did now.
Yes.
By how they're living.
Yeah. If you've been a lousy father and you've treated the mother badly and you ain't looked after your kids, when they grow up, they're gonna kick your ass. Yeah. Yeah.
God, why do you
I
say it
don't
like
know if
that,
I
Witness?
agree with that. I don't know if I agree with that. One, in
Yeah.
terms of men kicking their asses of absent fathers, I disagree with that. I think enough man punk out on that. And
Okay.
secondly, I think uh,
That's it. That's what you said. Punk out. Absent daddies.
yeah, straight out punk out, man.
Who's saying they gas the thing, yeah?
Huh?
You saying they gas it up and then they don't deliver?
But yeah, basically, definitely. I mean, I know quite a few men who, have had absent fathers and that, and then they become big men themselves, and they don't say nothing. I mean, I look at them like, if I'm a bit disappointed, to be honest, 'cause if I had an absent father, he'd be just getting it all the time, just getting it. You understand? And yeah, I see man them just like putty cats, really. You know, all look after
Well,
them when they're dying and all sorts. Not that they shouldn't. You know what I'm saying to
well,
you?
you
But
know what? I think, and I will just speak from like my uh Panamanian slash West Indian culture. There's a definitely a big push for like, you know, you have to respect your father. Respect your father. Even if your father not there, you're still respecting him. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just like a cultural thing that if you tell him about himself, you being disrespectful. Even if what you're saying is right, like, hey dad, you wasn't in my life. No, you cannot say it. You can't address it because then you're not respecting the man and you out of line.
that's
And
nonsense. I think that's
I'm just
probably from
telling you,
slavery as well. Fuck
I'm
the
just
master. Bollocks.
I'm just telling you that that's in, in my in my family, I have men who have not had that conversation with their fathers,
No, I hear that.
or it's more like a, I don't know, it's an unspoken type of, I don't even know what the excuse is,
But
but
do you think that that causes a problem, though, sis, in terms of, again, to use that word, but that intergenerational thing whereby because you don't solve your daddy issues, you understand?
oh, most
Then you then
definitely. I
have
think it causes
children,
problems. Yes, because then
and then
what you
yeah,
learn. Let's say you keep your mouth shut, right, and you don't say anything, right? Then when you have your child, you of course your child didn't come out with any instruction manuals. You might make some errors here and there, right? You have a child who's in touch with their emotions and they're articulate and they want to be expressive. Daddy, you were mean to me when you said that and you hurt me and you disappointed me. You're like, listen, don't give me no back talk. I couldn't tell my father this. I couldn't. This is how you're gonna feel. Like, why is your child telling you what you did wrong? I didn't do that. That's what that person's gonna. I didn't say that to my father. You can't say that to me. This is the sickness. This is the madness that's going on in the black family, and we just got to do better.
I hear that. But sis, if we can, we're doing better in terms of the way in which we I don't know what's the right word. I don't use the word beat, but
Discipline, physically
thank you.
discipline.
We're
Thank
administering
you.
some skillful licks, yeah. We're more skillful in terms of how we swing the belt in the air.
No, I'll tell you the truth, yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely worked, man, because enough of my people, like, I've never, you understand? My child's blessed. Even sometimes I look at him, I think, you are, and I say to him, you're blessed. Because I know by the age which he is, I knew what it was. Like I said, I didn't have it wholly, but I certainly knew what it was. And my mum's weapon was the wooden spoon. Don't fuck about. When you hear the jaw rattle, you know to start running. You understand? I had to hide that up, man. To hide that in the city, man. But I don't think. I think more and more families are not, like I said, beating their children, rightly or wrongly. I personally think that we've gone too much the other side. You know what I mean? Too soft. But Yeah, but in terms of what you were saying before, which is slightly left my mind, what was it against this? God
Which
damn.
part? When I said we got to do better, I meant that as a you know
Oh
this is
yeah,
this is
that's
this
it.
is a
That's it.
conversation
Yeah,
that we're having on this topic, right?
yeah,
And
that's
the
it. So
hope
I'm saying
is
as we
that
can do better with less
everyone can.
beating, sorry, we
Uh
can
huh.
maybe hopefully go forward, do better psychologically in terms of, people
Mm-hmm.
dealing with, do you know what I mean, the problems, and instead of ignoring it. Because a lot of people are carrying around, because it's all energy as well, in it. Because if you don't release it, it's a burden that you carry around yourself, in it. And I think enough people can get sick and different things like that from just from what I mean, carrying around that negative energy. Because if you're not releasing it onto your dad, whoever the other pagan is, then you're carrying it yourself, and that don't make no sense, man. I'm telling you. But
I want to ask everyone a question which might be controversial. If you're living, say, in London and you're a parent, and there's a lot of knife crime around, and you're worried for your kid, you then decide as a father to take your wife, your children out out of say London, and you go live in the home counties, far away from what you think is knife crime in a metropolitan area, and you take them all the way to the home counties, different life, different world, because you're afraid that if you leave them in London, they will die, they will be murdered. Is that good parenting or bad parenting? Because they'll grow up in the home counties away from London.
I don't necessarily think it comes under good or bad parenting. Do you know what I mean? I mean,
Because
obviously,
where you take them won't have many people of their culture or skin color.
yeah, but you're obviously
Mm.
in a narrative of it being a life type of situation.
But listen, witness. This right here is a whole. This is a great topic, and I think we need to really table that and have maybe another constructive convo session on that because you know I myself have a lot to say about that. Just to let you know.
Okay.
But we are right up at our 2 hour mark, and we want to try to keep our videos um uh decent length. And we thank the family for passing through. We thank the family for staying with us. We appreciate the dialogue back and forth. Um, we want to give a shout out to solving a race problem, uh, Nahinda Sankofa, all of the family that kind of came through. I can't even scroll on the thing here. Bugs Negus, Brother Bugs and M.A. Brown, all
Oh,
the family that
big up boobs.
yeah, all of the family that passed through. Thanks to the panelists. We want you guys to just, stay black, stay focused, keep pushing forward. You know, my motto: #Black families over everything.
Come on,
Black.
black love
That's
matters.
right. That's right. Black love matters. Uh, yeah, we just want to say peace, everyone.
And
Peace.
thanks very
Yeah,
much to
let's
the
big up the
haters.
channels though,
We
real
like
quick,
the
though, innit?
haters who
Oh.
dislike the video because you're fanboys and you come here because you want to hear what we
Oh
have.
God, witness.
Good topic again, family. Good topic.
Yes.
Relevant.
Yo, Tuesdays we got scattered. Wednesdays, what? Shakara, you on Wednesday?
Yeah, it's got on Wednesday.
No,
No,
Scatter's on
are you on
Tuesdays.
Wednesday? Scatters does Tuesdays, isn't it?
I'm thinking, what's wrong with being African?
Okay,
Mm.
so
Subject.
if you wanna post the link in there, that would be cool. Shakara's Wednesday, what 8, 10 o'clock? What's the time?
Shakara
8.
Speaks. Shakara
Yeah,
Speaks
yeah,
is the name
8
of his
p.m.
channel.
Yeah.
yeah. I'll post the link now. Hold on, give me 2 seconds.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
make sure
got
you
solving the
make
race
sure you
problem. He's
subscribe.
daily.
Yes,
Subscribe to
solving
the
the
channel.
race
Nanifa, rice
problem.
and pieces on Sunday, yeah.
Yeah, God willing, man. God willing. I'm gonna try to get my porn topic back on the menu, man.
Did you
So
say porn or porn?
porn,
She
porn.
she said porn.
Okay.
Yeah, when I have a look
Yeah,
at
boy.
how porn industry has affected the social
Affected.
fabric
Mm.
of society, if at all.
Okay.
See, when I was a
Yeah.
kid back in the 80s, you didn't really have access to porn, so I used to watch a lot of dancehall videos, but that's something different.
You're
I
crazy,
can't.
bro.
Too much, bro.
Yo, I
You're
can't. I
crazy, bro.
can't with Witness. Yo, Witness was
Uh,
crazy.
Witness,
You're
where
crazy.
that was some sad about to it, man. That was a
Did
shot.
you see the ones where they used to smoke the cigarette through the pum pum and them thing there with it?
Please don't let anybody know in public what I used to watch,
Is
man.
that what you was watching?
Oh my gosh.
And they
And
had
the
the
Family,
really bright,
family.
colorful hairstyles
This
as
You know what?
well.
episode
You
is
know what?
going to be a
disappearing
family
brandy
friendly
bottle and that.
But
episode.
yo. It's time to show everybody peace, man.
Yeah,
Next week.
peace,
bless
everyone.
up
Tomorrow,
to the chat room.
Wednesday.
Bless up to the panel. Big up,
Big up,
everyone.
big up, big up.
I love family, man.